Hey friends, happy December. I'm getting this out hopefully before January 1st. If not, oh well. Little bit of background real quick on life and why I haven't gotten any podcasts up. My son has still been in the hospital. I know the last podcast I did in November, we were waiting for him to do his, I believe his cath lab procedure. Since then, he has had open heart surgery on November the 22nd. He contracted bacterial meningitis on November the 29th. And then this past Wednesday, so December the 27th, he ended up having a shunt put in to help drain the extra fluid on his brain from hydrocephalus. So I have spent 6 weeks at the Children's Hospital here in Atlanta. So coming home to just hang out with my big kids and things like that. And I wanted to record a podcast. I've had stuff sitting around and in the back of my head wanting to do, but just finding the time and quiet. And, sometimes just being able to sit and talk to the camera just doesn't feel like a great idea. So personal note, all done. We're going to talk about kind of a review of CRAB. What is Children Raised Around the Blind? What have we been doing? I'm kind of going to go back from the beginning to present day and kind of some of my goals for going into 2024. Welcome to the CRAB podcast. Here at Children Raised Around the Blind, we have two goals. Our first goal is to help those living with the blind to understand them better and to help children through the difficulties that come from living with a blind parent. Secondly, we want to spread awareness of the blind community. Here on the podcast, we will share the things that blind people can do and ways the sighted world can include them in everyday life. Join us twice a month to learn about the visually impaired community. Okay, so hi everybody, and welcome to the podcast for December 2023. And we're just going to start at the beginning and we're going to review over what we've been able to do, what I've been able to do. So it's a one-man show. I do a lot of we's because it's a company, business, a group. Sometimes I don't like making it obvious that it's a one-man show. And all that to say, I love doing this. It's been a dream come true to be able to have and start creating a community for children raised around the blind to have access for people like me who have a blind parent or even someone who may have a blind relative, because there's not as much support out there. I'm not going to say there's none, but it's not as easy to come by. And so I want to be that person. I want to be the spokesperson for, not necessarily for the blind, but for what it's like growing up around it and making it more commonplace where people don't look so shocked when you say you have a blind parent, because that gets really annoying after so long. So CRAB, Children Raised Around the Blind, became something I wanted to do back in probably 2010, 2011, as I had met a handful of people who had blind parents when we went to our state convention, but especially when I went to the national convention with American Council of the Blind. And I was able to meet other families that had blind parents and see other kids like me who love our parents dearly, but sometimes struggled with what it was like, maybe helping them with, the money, because it was easier to ask us what their money was, or, just to describe things in the exhibit hall because they wanted to go shopping. And helping, not that they can't cut up their own food, but we would help them, cutting up their food and things like that. And it stirred in me this need that, it would be really nice to have people that I could talk about or talk to about sometimes the frustrations. Um, Sometimes the irritation of the outside world and how they think that because our parent is blind that they're deaf, so they scream at them instead of talking in a normal tone. Or the parent will say, talk to me, I'm the one checking out, and they still try to hand the change back to you. Just a lot of the frustrations and irritations that happen. And so it kind of was at the back of my head. I wanted to do something. And in college, I learned that for the deaf, they have a thing called CODA, which is Children of Deaf Adults, and they have their own support groups across the country. They are able to get together and have like peer support. And it's not that I'm going to discount having a deaf parent, because I'm sure there are struggles with that. But there's one big difference, and that is your parent can see. And because your parent can see, they can drive and they can do normal parent things. When your parent is blind, yeah, they go with you. Yes, they are able to be involved, but there's just a stigma of fear, and people don't know what a blind person can do. And because they can't make eye contact, because they can't drive, there's a different reliance that you have to have either on other people to get you places, or once you get your license, your parents are needing you to get them places. And it's just different. And I really wanted to have something. But how do you do that? How do you do that when in my local area, as far as I knew, I was the only kid who had blind parents? I mean, a blind parent. And even in our state organization, most of the blind people I knew, they had kids, but they were already grown. So they were a lot older than me. There are a handful of ones whose kids may have been close to my age, but they walked away as soon as they turned 18. They were like, I'm done. I'm done doing things for you. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want anything to do with the blind community. And they walked away. And so I wanted to create a community that did two things. One, provided those resources for those of us who have a blind parent to be able to say, this stinks. Or, I do this for my parent. Do you do that? And, what thing, just having somebody who gets it. At the same time, being able, the second part of what CRAB does is just telling the world that blind people are not stupid, that blind people don't sit at home and do nothing. They don't sit in a dark room in a rocking chair and just listen to books, that they have jobs. They run businesses, they cook, they clean, they raise children, they do all the things. And a lot of times you probably are interacting with somebody who has a vision loss and you don't even know it because they're really good at covering it up. And I want to share what blind people are capable of doing. And with that education piece, also be able to train people on how to get over their fear of interacting with a blind person, how to give directions, because, you may be working in retail or a doctor's office or a hotel and have somebody ask you for directions who's visually impaired. They may not have a white cane, may not have a guide dog. You may not be able to tell right off that they have a disability that is related to vision. And you say, oh, over there through the doors, down that hallway on the left. They're going to get lost. Versus if you come in and you use proper terms, like, so from here, you're going to go to the left, and you're going to go down through the door that's open. And then it's going to be the third door on your left. And this is what it's going to say, or the nameplate is on, the left side. Details. It's something small, but everyone can do it. And if people are doing that regularly as their normal speech with everyone they interact with, then that person who's blind or visually impaired is going to just jaw drop, for starters, but also be able to find their way without making it, hey, I can't see, I'm blind, can you help me do this? For those who may not be comfortable about their vision loss, or maybe just struggling with it that day. It doesn't have to be a big scene because you're already doing those steps. So, in excuse me, 2000 and it was 8 years ago in 24. So that would be 2016. I started a Facebook page for CRAB called CRAB Children Raised Around the Blind. Had no idea what I was doing, just kind of put it out there. No, sorry, it was 6 years ago. So it was 18 because my daughter was little. And just started by posting videos, sat down and a couple times a month would like post a topic. I know my first one was like, how do you talk to a blind person? And then I did a video, a Facebook Live with myself, and I had my mom come in and we kind of did a Q&A style. We covered a video, one of my very first videos that's up on the YouTube channel. I think it's on the YouTube channel. It may not be. I know it's on Facebook. Was how do you serve a plate to somebody who's blind or visually impaired? How do you, if you're dishing it for them, then how do you let them know where everything is on that plate? And we talked about using a clock face, and you go around the clock, from 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you tell them what's at each of those locations. And so little by little, just kind of did videos when I felt like it, posted when I could. And then in 2019, I started my Instagram page, which felt in a way like a better place to build community because of the hashtags, and the algorithms were a little bit different from Facebook, but I still would post both places 99% of the time. And just shared everyday life. My goal for 2020 that didn't happen was to write a book. I'm still working on that. I have a long ways to go. But by the end of 2019, I did have a website going into 19, heading into 20. And so I now had a blog where whatever discussions I would choose to have, which were like every other month, I would copy and paste that information and put it onto the blog so that there was a place people could find me. There's an about me page. I had resources. We talked about guide dogs at one point, and so I have a list of all the guide dog groups in the United States. Also included the UK and Canada, and I think one in Australia, just so people had access to this information all in one consolidated place. So 2020, my goal was a book. Didn't happen. Maybe at some point I will slow down and do that. But I had a child in 20. We all know COVID happened. Well, during all of that, between 20 going into 21, I dropped my first course. So on my website, Children Raised Around the Blind.net, N-E-T. If you Google us, we're the only children raised around anything out there. But on the blog, I dropped my first online course. Now, some of them are free. I have one that January 1st is going to go to paid. But the first one is interacting with a blind or visually impaired person. They're all less than an hour. It's about 45 minutes. And it just breaks down, first of all, terms. So what terms does a blind person use? How do they use that? Just you can be more familiar if you see them and they're talking about a screen reader or voiceover, Braille computer. You're not like, wait, what is that? Can you explain that to me? You come in with a little bit more knowledge into that conversation already, talking about, basic questions to ask them. Just some very easy, simple things that you can do in your everyday life. By the end of 20 going into 21, I also dropped how to give directions or guide a blind person, which is a very fun course. We go from sighted guiding or sighted guiding, there's now another term for it, to also giving verbal directions and giving written directions, and how those vary if there's a guide dog involved. Because the difference between a cane and a guide dog would be they're not going to notice as much doorways and things like that because the dog is, guiding them. And then here in 23, I finally dropped my third course, which is on social media and PowerPoint presentation. So a lot of times we want to be all fancy schmancy and have all these cute and beautiful graphic, or if we're going to give a presentation, we want a PowerPoint and we don't have to read all the slides, right? If you're going to do that with someone who may be blind or visually impaired, there's some things you need to do. Either one, email that content out to that person in advance, so they have a copy, because if you're not going to read everything on the screen, then they're at a disadvantage because they can't see what's on the screen. There's also the need in that to do, you can put them into a Word document and offer them that way. You can offer to email them, just a handful of ideas. We also talk about social media posting and how to make sure that you're tagging your pictures using alt text, or are you using the captions, and how to describe a picture and how that makes a big difference from a screen reader standpoint of doing things. So that one on January 1st will go to be paid. I think it's $10. It's not like it's that much, but again, we have 3 online courses. In 2023, we have launched this podcast. My goal to do 2 episodes a month. I'm probably going to taper that back to 1 a month in 24, just because life is going to be a little bit extra crazy. But the podcast is another way to reach out. It's another way to have topics and to talk to you guys, and just hoping to, again, spread more awareness. What is going on? What things are happening in the community? So January is Braille Awareness Month. And then Louis Braille's birthday, he's the one that created the Braille system of reading that we use. His World Braille Day, or Louis Braille Day, I think is the 4th of January. And so every January I do something about reading, whether that's me trying to attempt to read Braille. We do education on the alphabet. All of those types of things are part of what CRAB does. So that's our overview of what we've been doing, what I've been doing. And then moving forward in 24, I'm hoping to utilize the blog more. It's mostly been hosting podcasts. There's another course I want to do on websites and building accessible websites. I'm not in any way an expert in the field, but I can do the basics for the types of websites that I have been building lately. I'm also going to have the goal of 1 podcast a month, like I said, tapering back for the time being, just bringing home a medically complex child. All of those things make life a little more complicated. And that's probably about it for 2024 goals. 1 new course, podcast a month. One thing I am wanting to do is to promote a little bit more of our stores. So if you go to the blog and type in the search box CRAB store, we're selling 24-ounce color changing tumblers. And it's got a lid and a straw for the cups. And then I also have a book that my mom wrote. It's her autobiography called Paths of Light, covering the first 25 years of her life. She was given up at birth and was born blind, and follows her through residential school, growing up in a permanent foster care home where they farmed hundreds and hundreds of acres, and then following her into college, and then her short-term trip for 19 months in Togo, West Africa, where she was able to use Braille and actually worked on translating the Bible into their own dialect in Braille. So some of those really cool things that she was able to do. So you can feel free to check that out on the blog. If there's any sort of issues getting through, you can always reach out to me on my social media accounts. That's CRAB, Children Raised Around the Blind, and Instagram, Children Raised Around the Blind. Or I'm going to be getting an email address up soon, and I'll let everybody know when that is good to go for any questions or feedback. So I hope you guys have enjoyed our podcasts. Feel free to go back. Please like, subscribe, share, any way to get more information out about what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to 2024. I would like to, my goal is to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram and probably break 500 on Facebook. Between the two right now, I'm at 750. I've got about 560 on Instagram, which is about, I think, 150, maybe just shy of that on Facebook. So hoping to launch all of that a little bit bigger. I hope you guys have a great New Year's and see you soon.